Bearslayer, Canto 6. The Struggle Against Invaders. By Andrejs Pumpurs. Scene 1. The Midsummer's Eve Festival. The people come together and give thanks. In Latvia now midsummer came, called forth its children with one word, the country over, all the same. Now, ligo, ligo, clear was heard. The nightingale with sweet refrain, by every brook and streamlet trilled. Midsummer, Liga's Eve again, the carefree folk with pleasure filled. Up to the azure mountain borne, the logs burned bright, 4 fires thence hauled. The Ligasoni priests' loud horn, all to the festive evening called. And thence they came, both young and old, both great and small, a happy throng. The men brought mead from honey gold, the wives brought cheese and bread along. The lads and lasses with them bore soft grass and wreaths of flowers too, that on Midsummer's Eve all wore, adorned themselves, and pleasure knew. They danced, they ate, they drank, and down their offerings put. The priests, the folk to thank, led to the altar's foot, poured goblets full of mead, burned costly herbs and rare, whose sweet aromas, freed, rose swirling in the air. Together they all sang the famous songs and prayers that to the goddess rang, and solace brought from cares. With love we look to you, ligo, ligo, linked here in friendship true, ligo. Our humble farms now bless, ligo, ligo, fill barns with your largesse, ligo. Now saddle your grey horse, ligo, ligo. Ride round our fields your course, ligo. Sow seeds of grass and grain, ligo, ligo, fine barley grow again, ligo. For meadow grass we pray, ligo, ligo, our heifers give fine hay, ligo. Let hay our heifers eat, ligo, ligo, our colts feed oats grown sweet, ligo. Make all the flowers grow, ligo, ligo, that on our hillsides blow, ligo. Let maidens braid their hair, ligo, ligo, with wreaths of flowers fair, ligo. Give young men on all sides, ligo, ligo, hard-working beauteous brides, ligo. To all our daughters yield, ligo, ligo, strong men to till the field, ligo. Come to our farmyards near, ligo, ligo, your children visit here, ligo. Guard us from evil's spell, ligo, ligo, that we may love you well, ligo, ligo, and of you we may tell, ligo. The ancestors' spirits call the people to live in harmony. While rich the sound of song rose high, across the vale and woodlands' tops, the shadows of their sires gone by appeared within the sacred copse. Beneath the leafy oaks once more, to guard the people's soul they sped. The priests these heroes passing saw, and reverent covered each his head. The eldest of the priests then spoke, the teachings of their fathers told. In harmony and peace the folk, each to the other ought to hold, to give their brethren help and aid, when they were caught in suffering's grip. Then soon both old and young obeyed, and all joined hands in fellowship. They promised friendship through the land, and those in strife with fellow men, went to them, offered warm their hand, and lovingly sought peace again. There in the grove upon the hill, close to the gods come face to face, the folk could settle every ill, blessed by the Spirit's saving grace. In groups they're seated on the grass, the fathers and their wives agreed, within their family gifts to pass, while jugs and horns, filled up with mead, passed all along from row to row, and each one drank a healthy pull. Then bread and cheese passed to and fro, and all was tasted to the full. They ate and drank, discussed the year, men had with workmates much to say, and women saw, again drawn near, clan sisters come from far away. And even greybeards friends could spy, their childhood comrades there could find, companions from the days gone by, the age of youth, now left behind. Midsummer's Eve best pleased the young, their songs through wood and valley rang. The lads in crowds to love gave tongue, hot-blooded songs of passion sang. The lasses answered, love denied, but in each maid was clear the case, the time she scarcely could abide, until her love she would embrace. Now closer pushed the youths in rows, close to the maidens to advance, until each found the one he chose, and hand in hand they joined the dance. Scene 2, the struggle begins. The Lord of Leelvard brings terrible news. Beneath the oak trees on the hill, that by the sacred grove near stood, the priests and chieftains talked their fill, of war and peace, things bad and good. The runic scriptures in the grove showed grim portents that warning gave. To know their fate the leaders strove, their faces and their talk were grave. Old Bertnix was plain in view, with Aescroclus, and though delayed, the Leelvard lord came too, and soon a speech the old man made. He warmly uttered greetings strong, as old companions welcomed him, then took his place before the throng, and told them there his tidings grim. You chieftains gathered on this hill, do not yet know the fate that looms, the threat that all with fear must fill, and Latvia's folk to serfdom dooms. Near Daugavava's mouth, as well you know, upon the river's bank arrayed, the Livians let the strangers go, and settle there to work and trade. But later they were joined by more, by men in armor ironclad, who with the spring came by the score, and works have done that we forbade. They now control the river lands, at Exkyle a castle work, at Salaspils a fortress stands. In these like beasts the plunderers lurk. Like cunning foxes first they sought, with everyone to be a friend, like ravenous wolves then victims caught, all prey devoured, right to the end. The Livian lands are now laid waste, each village plundered, burned in spite, the men and women slaughter faced, who stood against the stranger's might. Survivors even lose their soul, compelled a foreign faith to take. And clear we see now that their goal is conquest of our folk to make. They seek to break the people's pride, upon them serfdom's yoke to place, among themselves then to divide all lands within the Baltic space. Upon a day now past not long, the people made report to me, of foreign soldiers armored strong, to Leelvard riding free. Still full of hope, great haste I made, and armed my people straight away. We stood behind our palisade, drawn up to face them in the fray. I asked them plainly why they came. A mighty knight then forward went, and said that Daniel was his name, by Riga's bishop he was sent, to seize all Leelvard's space. But if I wished he would allow, that I might live there by his grace, in my own home a vassal now. His own stone castle he would build, that for himself to raise he planned, and hostages to take the willed, from every village in my land. From farms a 10th part was his now, and of their crops a share was due. The church's father for each plough, would take from them a levy too. Such shamelessness I bitter spurned. It would destroy my ancient home, possessions plundered, houses burned, the people would be slaves to Rome. Together with a little band, I fled to safety from their ranks, and came to Dabrils in his land, found refuge on the Gauger's banks. Some Latvian lords who shared my plight, came to this stronghold, where they thought, with warriors bold to stand and fight, and threw up ramparts round the fort. They, with the Livs as allies, tried to stand against the stranger's strength, all hoped that though some would have died, they would defeat the knights at length. By Daniel warned about their stand, a troop of knights the bishop sent, to travel to the Gauger land, among them riding, Cowper went. Into Rader in open show, the Christian faith he now professed, and formed deep friendships with the foe, that all his people saw distressed. The Gauger fought for Christ to win, with knights he soon began to seek. The mind of Dabrils doubt put in, and made our fathers' gods seem weak. He said the bishop had come here, to hold from Riga's castle sway, and cherish as his children dear, all those who would the Pope obey. High on the ramparts Russin spoke, sought Cowper's message to reject, as was the custom of his folk, his helm removed to show respect. A heavy arrow from a bow, then struck his unprotected head, and mortal wounded by the blow, down to the ground he toppled dead. All were enraged by this base deed, ran from the palisade pell-mell. They charged the strangers without heed, and slaughtered them until night fell. But reinforcements soon were sent, to help the strangers in the fray. The Latvians then withdrew and went into their fort to wait for day. 4 days and weeks sharp was the fight, until at last the stockade fell, defeated by the foeman's might. Like heroes though our men fought well. At length the Latvians, nearly all, found death upon the ramparts high. And having lost this sheltering wall, our people's lands defenseless lie. The bishop soon his ranks will fill. In sorrow, lords, such news I send, but, if we do our God's just will, our fight will know a happy end. For still in Latvia's rolling lands, are men by whom sharp spears are made, and still 100 hands, that well know how to wield a blade. So, sound the trumpet, beat the drum, our warriors brave to war to send, and straight they will as one man come, to fight for freedom to the end. Bearslayer comes to lead them in the fight. While, shocked, the chieftains listened well, around them through the valley wide, the songs of Liga silent fell, but then 100 voices cried, Bearslayer, see, where he comes near. Rejoicing, people called his name. Into the grove, unchecked by fear, with his companions now he came. Bearslayer, with lame Dota, and dark Spidler their sires embraced, while firm Cocknesis gave his hand. Reunion's joy all gloom displaced. A special joy the fathers knew, to see their children safe that day. Now with the young folk close in view, grave peril's threat seemed far away. With his companions close to him, Bearslayer in the council Saturday. To all reports he listened grim, and what had passed he learned from that. His heart felt deep and burning pain, his eyes in anger glowed with hate, when, told the story once again, he learned of Leelvard's fate. The priests proclaimed the night at end, and prayed that all their people dear, the gods' salvation would defend, but urged their sons to show good cheer, and courage, if they must, to fall, for other folk to give their life. At this, in thoughtful manner all, now homeward went, prepared for strife. The chieftains knew that soon their lot would be to fight upon this ground, but still upon this hillside spot, the sons first raised the council found. They sat together, talking more. As one they pledged to make a stand, destroy the strangers in a war, or drive them all from out the land. Upon their spears this oath they swore, Bearslayer their commander made, the whole assembled host before, and named Cocknesis to give aid, with Talvaldis as second man. Then, once again to friendship sworn, at last the chiefs, as time fast ran, the azure mountain left at dawn. Bearslayer's captains, in a band, with Ace Croclus and Spidler rode, lame Dota too was close at hand, to Bertneeks his sire's abode. The youthful couples wished, once there, to celebrate their wedding vow, and in this ancient manner fair, take priests and fathers' blessings now. Bearslayer's wedding. Why does my garland sit so crooked on my brow? How could it straighter fit, weighed down with gossip now? While I my garland wore, of lamer was no heed, I wear it now no more, and, weeping, lamer need. O thatch a house with reeds, put silver pegs beneath, so that our sister, needs, can hang her oaken wreath. The rattling bridge astride, the groom now rides in view. My kinsmen, if you ride, your swords will rattle too. Look where in warrior state, my kinsmen do great deeds, with swords attend the gate, and calm their fretful steeds. Within the castle's palisade, the relatives thus joyful call, awaiting suitors their arrayed, who ride up, seeking, to the wall. With many friends Bearslayer rode, beside Cocknesis to the fort, according to their ancient code, like strangers, entrance there they sought. They asked about a place to rest, for each, and also for his colt. Within the gates now every guest demanded answers to unbolt, from whence they came, to where they rode, if they were safe to have inside, until old Bertniks forth strode, himself the gates then opened wide. Within the hall were tables laid, with sumptuous meals for feasting fit, and in the centre, clear displayed, chairs where the suitors had to sit. They asked to see the fairest maid, the wedding party led in some, but they rejected all displayed, until lame Dota forth had come, with Spidola, and joined the folk. They wore rich clothes, and on their head were decorated wreaths of oak, bound with brocade and precious thread. The suitors rose and praised each bride, and sat them in the chairs in state, and both men stood there close beside, and now began to ask them straight, if they would sell their garlands here. Such precious goods with payment high, they willingly would purchase dear. To which the guests made this reply, not with a sack of gold or more, can maidens such as these be bought. Through neither riches, nor through war, can maidens such as these be caught. But after both were full agreed, and when the men had promised fast, to guard them well, meet every need, the maidens gave consent at last. To marry both, the priests now came. With ivy twined round leaves of oak, their hands were joined in Lamer's name. Meanwhile the priests this blessing spoke, just as the supple ivy curls, and round the oak itself entwines, so with the slender new-wed girls, whom love now with their groom combines. The grooms before them gifts now spread, with tears her wreath gave up each bride. Then on their heads were placed instead, expensive caps of marten's hide, adorned with silver was each hat. Each new-wed bride went with her man, up to the table, where they Saturday, the wedding banquet now began. All day into the night it went, led by the songs of choirs sweet, they danced until their strength was spent. But when the pairs went to their seat, old Bertniks, grown stern, required that banqueting should early cease, much sooner, then, the guests retired, than if their land had been at peace. Scene 3. The Latvians enjoy early success. The Latvian warriors gather from all sides. The new-wed pairs did not have long their joyous unions to fulfill, nor happiness to fashion strong, for destiny's harsh unswerving will, the grooms soon called into the field, from loving arms the husbands tore, to where in armor spears men wield, and where their legs wade deep in gore. War's trumpet Bertniks now let, on every hilltop brassy sound, on every lofty mound they set. At night the watchfires burning round, and every chieftain did the same, passed on the sign the rest to show, a signal that to all soon came, to gather and to war to go. In every village homestead then, across the Latvian country broad, the people's sons, the younger men, prepared for war, grasped spear and sword, and saddled up their dashing steeds. Each sister and each young man's bride adorned their helmets, then must, needs, with tears and singing partway ride. Now soon on every road and track, they slept at night beneath a tree, a gathering host streamed to attack, and after 2 full days or 3, together came upon their course. Bearslayer led thence further groups, and at the meeting place in force, all hail, rejoiced the troops. Old Bertniks rode with them too, and Leelvardis both of those, close by the fighting in full view, wished to remain until the close. No longer their lame Dota more, nor Spidola at home would stay, the 2 young brides forth to the war, rode with the army on its way. There, where the river Gauja falls, through gorges to the valley's bounds, with palisades and earthen walls, stood many strongholds built on mounds. Beside the streams in forests dense, there lived the clans and Latvian lords. Led by Bearslayer riding thence, here entered now the warlike hordes. When they, in nests along the way, a German infestation found, the vermin pest was cleared that day, they further marched and reached the ground, that used to Dabrals to belong. Here they encountered German knights, who there had built a castle strong, and fortified it for their fights. Bearslayer took it back again, and many German knights there died, who lost their lives against our men, The host rolled on then like a tide. Far, in a surging wave, it flowed, unstoppable through vale and wood, advanced until the soldiers rode to Tereda where Cowper stood. Here in the Livian people's lands, they plainly saw as they passed by, each village lay in German hands. In fields of barley and of rye, the golden grain swayed full and fat. The Livians ploughed and sowed the fields, but strangers ate their fill of that, then sold the straw and other yields. And closely with the castles merged, stood foreign churches, places where the priests and monks the people urged, the Christian faith with them to share. But by the strangers converts here were held as servants in their thrall, and from the Livians every year they took a tribute from them all. A band of those not Christian turned, into the unknown forests spilled, in deepest thickets clearings burned, and chopped down trees their huts to build. There kept the ancient gods' commands, but even here the bishop's spies could search them out and made demands of tribute that to all applies. The recapture of Tereda. Alarmed by this advancing horde, the strangers fled from their estates, left monks and churches to the sword, withdrew inside Tereda's gates. Where soon, attacking in a ring, from all around Bearslayer fought, but found it not an easy thing to conquer them the way he sought. High on the walls were many knights, whose heavy bolts, in hundreds loosed, drove back the Latvians from the heights. But then Bearslayer's men produced a scaffold built of wooden planks, on which, in deepest dark of night, they breached the castle wall in ranks, and to its ramparts brought the fight. The struggle filled them all with dread, and both at times had to withdraw, for both sides suffered many dead. Bearslayer, at the very fore, slew many knights, until at length the armoured Germans all saw clear that not their strongest matched his strength, and seeing this the knights knew fear. So great this fear that at his sight they threw their swords and shields aside, and let Bearslayer, without fight, choose those who lived and those who died. Bearslayer raised the castle's stone, while monasteries and churches high, in piles of ashes down were thrown, to strangers refuge to deny. False Cowper was not there himself, but safe in Riga's castle walls, where more and more he kept his wealth, and dwelled within the bishop's halls. Among the foes who captive fell, was Dietrich too, the man of prayer. With lying tongue he sought to tell, at Cowper's wish he had been there, who gave to him the castle's ground. He therefore asked that as a guest, all those be seen, whom there they found, and granted life and spared arrest. Bearslayer honoured Cowper still, and so he thought to grant them this, but strong the lives opposed his will, since much with it they found amiss, for by this person's lying tongue, 100 times they were deceived, by word and deed they had been stung, the cruelest blows from him received. Thus, if Bearslayer would allow that Dietrich and the others live, to render justice they asked now, the ruthless priest to them to give. At this Bearslayer gave consent, that Dietrich there should pay the price, and to the sacred grove they went, to give their gods a sacrifice. But if a prisoner rode a grey, that, stepping thrice across a spear, with left hoof each time led the way, this was a sign that showed them clear, the gods refused this man to take. The cunning Dietrich knew this law, and so arranged the test to make, and saved himself, though death seemed sure. The strangers, those who were not dead, were stripped of weapons, armor too, bareheaded all to Riga led, then all the captured land in view, Bearslayer gave the Livians back. Behind he left Talvaldus then, to guard the Gauger from attack, together with the Livian men. Bearslayer took a second force, swift with Cocknesis forth he rode, and with his father set the course, to what was once their own abode. The return to Leelvard. In Leelvard now they saw, like Tereda the strangers thronged, and settled there with manner sure, as though to them it all belonged. Great anger Leelvardes felt, at what his folk had had to face, for Daniel Banneroff harsh dealt, and of compassion showed no trace. There in the ancient stronghold's stead, he raised a castle's walls up high, and from it launched a rain of dread. in lands that near the Daugavava lie. Forth thence he sallied and returned, destroyed and looted any day, both villages and houses burned, oppressed the folk in every way. Some elders then from him had fled, who by such horrors were appalled. When to the woods their clans they led, a halt to plundering Daniel called. Swift messengers to them he sent, who said oppression now had ceased, with them to live in peace he meant, and all invited to a feast. These elders, yet who did not know the depths of Daniel's evil mind, believed him and resolved to go, and peace with him their thought to find. Outside the war with them to meet, to a pavilion Daniel went, invited them to drink and eat, and seemed to speak with good intent. But suddenly, from them concealed, while at the table they felt sure, he quickly went out in the field, and locked the stout pavilion's door, his murderous plan to start a fire. Around the building men piled straw, then on all sides they lit the pyre, and soon they watched the hot flame soar. The heat and smoke inside burst through, and all the elders loudly screamed, while Daniel and his butcher crew stood on the castle walls and beamed. With devilish laughter they looked back, but laughter turned to looks of fear, when, riding from the forest track, just then they saw armed men appear. With shield and heavy spear arrayed, Bearslayer rode them all before. He heard the shouted cries for aid, and straightway broke down the door. Then with the help of other men, he quickly to the rescue went. The elders hailed Bearslayer then, as though by heaven he were sent. Their gratitude was not concealed, that rescue safe they had received, and then the elders plain revealed, how Daniel's lies had all deceived. On hearing of this devil's trick, Bearslayer's anger knew no bounds, he called his men together quick, and swore to take the castle's grounds. Although the knights fought hard and long, and strove the fortress to defend, they could not block Bearslayer's throng, who took the castle in the end. Then every captured knight they slew, and only one could still survive. Just Daniel Banneroff lived through, was taken prisoner, yet alive. The knight was given, on that day, into the village elders' hands, revenge to take in their own way, for his base deeds within their lands. Bearslayer and lame Dota no brief peace, of Leelvard word spread wide, it was Bearslayer's home once more. In every house on every side, to all, great joy the tidings bore. As though newborn all felt fresh life, and those, who to the forest's space, had fled from there to hide from strife, returned and took their former place. All hurried then in joyful ranks, to Leelvard's castle gate, to greet Bearslayer and give thanks, that he had saved them from harsh fate. Their mood was bright with victory's glance, a feast gave Leelvardes there, where all could eat and drink and dance, and booty was divided fair. The chiefs exulted, then one day, all thought of Daniel's crimes once more. They dragged him out, led him away, and took him to the Daugavava's shore. You, German dog, to him they cried, through you we felt the fire's scald. But power now is on our side, to you we give the waters cold. They took a plank of wood at last, and on his back tied to the beam, placed Daniel there, with ropes made fast, and pushed it in the river's stream. Sail to your homeland back, they mocked, go seek your brother's welcoming hands. And take the foreign faith, here blocked, away with you to other lands. By fear they had not felt before, the strangers all were gripped when told, about the mighty feats in war, performed by Latvia's hero bold. They ran away from every side, and fled to Riga with one mind, in its cathedral sought to hide, in those strong walls a haven find. But even there, in this dark hour, no longer safety Albert knew, that soon in Baltic lands his power would fade away, this was his view. And so, to get more armored knights, he sailed the sea to German shore, men to recruit to fight his fights, and in the spring renew the war. In Riga, ruling in his place, he left false Kauper, who explained, he would protect by God's good grace, all Christian strangers who remained. The danger now was fully spent, Bearslayer knew, throughout the land, and so his soldiers homeward sent. In Leelvard, hand in hand, peace with lame Dota now found there. She worked inside all to restore, he strove the buildings to repair, and farmyard labours oversaw. Cocknesis too from war returned, and Aescroclus, from battle spent. With Spidula, to rest well earned, to Aescrocal all three now went. From them with love they took their leave, Bearslayer and lame Dota both, in parting sought not deep to grieve, to friends good fortune made an oath. Old Leelvardes, with his friend, to Bertnix's castle rode. The two old men wished in the end, to make together their abode. To satisfy their own deep needs, now lived Bearslayer and his bride. Although great fame came through their deeds, and honor from the people's side, there on the Dorgavavar's pleasant shore, at last they found what, all above, their hearts throughout had missed so sore, sweet happiness and married love. Scene 4, the death of Bearslayer and the conquest of Latvia. The secret of Bearslayer's strength is revealed. The springtime came and, once again, clothed hills and valleys all in green, and wakened nature's creatures then, that frisky gambling could be seen. Within our fatherland it seemed, that warlike times had safely passed. All stayed at home because they deemed, that springtime work should start at last. They fixed the plough and beat the share, worked hard each fence and yard to mend, and even Cangas sought fresh air, and worked his garden beds to tend. He cut off branches, stakes drove in, to help the plants their healthy grow. His face looked sullen now and thin, and let despairing feelings show. The seed sown in his fatherland, as everywhere, so with him too, had borne a bitter fruit unplanned, and disappointment now he knew. The people no more came in need, as once in droves to him they poured, the strangers took of him no heed. But something else within him gnawed. Bearslayer lived unharmed, and worse, had lasting fame among the folk, and Spidula fled Satan's curse, when from his grasping claws she broke. His future now was death, he knew, and all the torments that would give. Condemned he was, his last years through, with bitter heart each day to live. And so he scarcely felt more fear, when, as the sun was growing dim, he heard a voice, his garden near, in hollow tones that greeted him. He raised his head, and at the gate, their cruel Dietrich came in view. Then Cangas spoke, these words to state, I truly am amazed that you should visit here, your presence show. Did growing fat on roasted meat, within stone castles tedious grow? Then Dietrich thus could Cangas greet, the feasts I ate there did not pall, but soon of them will be no more, unless your powers heed my call. If you will help, reward is sure. He said it was the bishop's will, new troops to Riga soon to lead, but all would be in vain while still, Bearslayer all the Baltic freed, and stood against the German force. From Cangas aid they sought, to show, of bold Bearslayer's strength the source, so that a knight could lay him low. Then Cangas gave this answer back, 10 times he had upon the earth, loosed giants and his demon pack, but all had been of little worth. Bearslayer killed them all in fights, and had escaped each plot in turn. If now Bearslayer scythed down knights, that were to Cangas small concern. But yet, another circumstance, led him to be the hero's foe, though just what plan would have a chance, against the youth, he did not know. Hell's demons often served him well, consulted, they might find a way. If in his hut were fit to dwell, then Dietrich there some time could stay. That night then Cangas all alone, tight shut himself within his room, that Dietrich, if he heard him groan, would not know fear within the gloom. At midnight, then a whirlwind's throes, shook hard the house from all around, where Cangas dwelled loud groaning rose, and then was heard a screeching sound. So horrible that, out of fear, On Dietrich's head stood up his hair. He crossed himself, such sounds to hear, and loud recited every prayer. No pause to sleep by day or night, long Cangars strove, help to invoke. The third day at the morning's light, these earnest words to Dietrich spoke. Accursed to all will be the day, Bearslayer's secret was exposed. As traitors, curses to our pay. Here through our deeds, quite unopposed, the evil one will soon be free, to do at will each wicked deed. My guilty henchmen, hark to me, to what I tell you pay good heed. A mother bear Bearslayer bore, the babe a holy hermit sired. His mother's line gave strength, but more, through her the youth bears ears acquired, and if opponents can prevail, and both his ears slice off with speed, his mighty power at once will fail. Enough. Go now. No thanks I need. Bearslayer and the Black Knight fight to the death. The Bishop, Albert, now brought back a host of knights to fight anew. Among them was a knight in black, who well the work of plundering knew. He claimed his mother was a witch, who guided him with magic charm, and he in devil's arts so rich, that never wound could cause him harm. This Black Knight Dietrich chose to fight, and be his weapon in the fray, to beat Bearslayer's strength and might, and best him in a cunning way. He welcomed Cowper too once more, to help them conquer with his sword, and in the name of God he swore, in heaven all would find reward. One day Bearslayer resting sat, close by lame Dota in their hall, and idly talked of this and that. But over her now hung a pall, she was not happy as at first. A time her thoughts she still concealed, then in a trembling voice conversed, and with these words her plight revealed. Bearslayer, my beloved, speak, what can it mean that many a day, against my wish, my mood is bleak, and in my heart cold fear holds sway? I am so happy, but I fear that something could disturb our joy, for reasons that I do not know, and soon perhaps our life destroy. Before Bearslayer love had shown, to calm her sorrow had contrived, the keeper of the gate made known that friendly riders had arrived, and asked if he might let them through. On looking out the window then, Bearslayer at the gate could view, with Cowper in their midst, strange men. Bearslayer did not hesitate, he recognized great Cowper clear, and said to open up the gate, as guests, with honor brought them near. Now Cowper said that they were sent by Bishop Albert to make peace, and through the land as heralds went, that friendship strong might never cease. Bearslayer never sought a war, unless the cause were justified. And so goodwill to Cowper bore, and willing let him come inside. At Leelvard they all stayed, as honored guests, so long they would. And for them their Bearslayer made the best provision that he could. But still lame Dota restless grew, the Black Knight near her could not bear, although he sought to change her view, with gracious words and flattery fair. Bearslayer ordered contests held, and tournaments were staged at length. Then came a day when both had felled opponents beaten by their strength. The Black Knight to Bearslayer spoke, and made a challenge to a fight. The youth refused him with a joke, he did not wish to give a slight. The knight, however, angry seemed, and answered in a mocking way, no test of strength for him he deemed, to beat Bearslayer in a fray, despite the boasting he had heard. Bearslayer did not tarry more, but at the knight without a word, swung hard the heavy sword he bore. At first Bearslayer thought it sport, and jousted in light-hearted way, but, fighting fierce, the Black Knight brought great strength and litheness to the fray. And suddenly in swift attack, Bearslayer's ear clean off he slit. Enraged, Bearslayer struck him back, his blow the knight's stout armor split. The Black Knight's blood began to pour, but bold Bearslayer's sword had cracked. The knight saw this and struck once more, the other ear his slash clear hacked. Bearslayer's anger knew no bound, he seized the Black Knight in his grasp, their deadly struggle shook the ground, as now they fought to their last gasp. 3 times Bearslayer seized him fast, and seemed the heavy knight to beat. 3 times he staggered at the last, the knight broke free with kicking feet. The watching men stood pale with fear, as though their feet were rooted deep, while to the edge the two came near, right to the lofty cliff top steep. The Dorgavava takes Bearslayer to its bosom, his foe at last Bearslayer flung into the river's depths to drown, but round with heavy armor hung, the black knight dragged Bearslayer down. The waters made a cracking sound, the waves surged high and took the pair, and in their fight together bound, down in the depths they vanished there. Into the Dorgavava's surging flood, now sank the setting sun's pale glow. A thick mist rose and dripped like blood, the waves sighed mournful down below. The foaming waters parted wide, and took the hero to their breast. An island rose up in the tide, and in this place he sank to rest. Within the castle fearful screams, and cries of lamentation rose, and now lame Dotaded her dreams, to end her life that moment chose. The Latvian warriors, stricken sore, his kin and brethren, all in sum, now, one by one, fell in the war, by stronger forces overcome. The strangers gained the upper hand, and ruled as lords, cruel and depraved, the well-loved people of the land, 4 centuries were all enslaved. But still, though ages long pass by, the grieving folk his memory keeps, for them, in death he does not lie, but in a golden palace sleeps. Below the island risen there, he lies within the Dorgavava's breast, with Latvia's folk their fate to share, and close to Lielvard rest. From time to time, late in the night, the Dorgavava boatmen sometimes see 2 men in combat on the height, in struggles that they cannot flee. While in the castle ruins, clear, a little flame there flickers bright. The fighting men the edge come near, but take no heed, so hot their fight. Until at last they cross the bounds, and deep into the depths they drop, a scream within the castle sounds, the little flames' bright flickers stop. It is Bearslayer struggling there, the strangers to eradicate, but long lame doters watching stare, upon his triumph yet must wait. But still, the day will come, is sure, when he the Black Knight will cast down, in Staburax's raging maw, his deadly foe alone will drown. Then for the folk new times will dawn, at last their freedom will be born. Thanks for watching the channel. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Or if you would like to support the channel, please visit the link in the description to visit our Patreon page. Like the pictures in the video. Visit the link in the description to see more. Thanks again for watching.